is martial arts, or is a martial artist different from a fighter, and can they be both?
So had somebody who asked me about the kind of cultural differences between fighting and martial arts, and specifically like gyms, when you go to a gym or a dojo, how it's different. And I really don't know too well because, you know, I have my suspicions of observations I've made. I've gone to different places, but not too many gyms, mostly dojos. So I thought it would be great to have a conversation. You popped into my mind. You, founder Jardine Karate, Karate and Jiujitsu under your belt. Those are things that you do regular, plus I understand you do other things as well. I think you also compete pretty regularly, which is awesome. I know that you just found a new gym that you're trying out. Mm-hmm. And it's worth mentioning that you wrote a few books, The Hardest Path, Buddhist Millionaire, constant co-host for the UFC part of the Conversations on Karate podcast, which is
for the conversation.
Absolutely excellent. For all of these reasons, I thought it would be excellent to have a conversation with you on this and just get your thoughts and perspectives on this.
So when you messaged me to say, essentially the question being, you know, is martial arts, or is a martial artist different from a fighter, and can they be both, right? And it's something I've thought about a lot because I came into the martial arts fascinated by the martial arts side. Do you know what I mean? That whole kind of, right, you know, if I get to this belt, enlightenment comes, and then you go, oh, that belt came and I'm still a dickhead. Okay, well, it's the next belt, you know, and then that goes on, right? Until you go on and realize at some point it's all a nonsense. There is no sudden epiphanactic bash that comes on the 84,000 repetition of whatever kata. So then you start to go, whoa, hang on a minute. And that then has very much kind of fueled my thinking forever. So I guess the question has to start with, what do we define as art before we can determine whether there is a martial artist or a fighter? And for me, I mean, what do you define as art, Ken, of any form, whether we're talking martial arts or writing or what's art for you?
Sure. For me, that's an excellent question and one that I should have prepared for, but no.
Sorry.
For me, so no, it's good. So excuse me if I fumble through it, but to me, it's a creative expression of something you believe in. In a capacity, whatever capacity that might be, something that has meaning to you and being creatively expressed through whatever creative means you have at your availability.
So I like that. I was thinking about this, and so you know the Japanese word do. It's karate do, judo, like, you know, on it goes. Well, of course, it translates as two words, right? Way, or literally road, or path. And of course, when you know, my first book was after I came back from pilgrimage in Japan. And the whole idea of the way is the kind of the journey is both the way and the end, the means and the end. And I think that we kind of, in the West, we sort of plug onto that because it's quite cool. But I don't think we get it. I don't think we really, I'm not sure Westerners are designed to get it because we're goal-driven beings. I mean, a Brit and an American, we are brought up going, yeah, push hard, there's the goal, go for it. Well, you, make sure you know, wave your banners. And that's completely opposite to kind of going with the flow. So I've had that on my mind ages. And I think now for me, art is, I think living is art for a start. I don't think any of us can get away from art. Just being alive is art. You are a better artist the more you are able to remove yourself from the process and trust the underlying strength that drives us. Now, some corners of the world will call that underlying force God, and they'll frame it in spiritual and religious terms, right? That's not my bag, but I'm not opposed to that.
Yep.
Other markets will frame that in, well, it's your subconscious that's taking over. I don't think it matters, but we've all been in that state where mostly by mistake, we've stepped away from ourselves and gone, man alive, I was good today. And then there are other days where I'll give you a martial arts example, right? I've competed lots. That's how I like to pressure test my stuff. And I like fighting, right? So, you know, I can't tell you how many matches I've lost. And then I show up as a blue belt or whatever at the Worlds in Vegas. And on that day, I won. I sailed through my 4 or 5. I did not miss a beat, but it had nothing to do with me. It just happened to be on that day, for whatever reason, I wasn't in my own way. And I ended up with a nice shiny gold. So that's the art flowed through me. Nothing to do with me. 2 weeks later, as world champion, I tried to recreate that in London. Yeah, because I'm the big world champion now. I've done it. I've transcended, finished in the 15 seconds armbar. I got absolutely killed because then I tried to recreate.
Now you were in it.
Yeah, and now I'm like, you're just another idiot who can't win. And that's the thing. So I think for me then, art is the regularity where we can step outside of ourselves, the effort and the strain, and just let whatever it is flow. So then we then go, okay, well, is that a martial artist? If you've stepped out of your way, sure. I've seen martial artists who are nothing like artists, and I've seen fighters who are 100% artists. Oh, yeah. And I would say in my own journey, I've come closer to art by being a jiu-jitsu fighter. Because the one thing we know in jiu-jitsu, they pressure test their stuff. So they're fighting, right? They're pressure test.
Yeah.
So you haven't got a chance to hide behind the grandeur and the shapes. You just have to get on with it. And weirdly, through the fighting, the art reveals itself. So it's kind of one leads to the other.
Completely agree. I feel like jiu-jitsu is easily one of the places that, at least for now, I mean, the world will change it. Everything will change, and jiu-jitsu is not protected from that. But at least for now, jiu-jitsu is one of the only things that really has an expression of its own, that these things happen and we're really connected to it. It's probably the closest to that, to what, when you say, like you said, the do, it's probably the closest that we have to it, because the other arts we've really kind of gotten in the way of them, I think.
Well, the other arts allow you to talk the game without having the... So we can talk... If we talk... Let's look at the kind of the more spiritual aspects of art, right? Transcendence and enlightenment, whatever that means. Ease, right? Well, it's easy to talk ease. One of my great Tibetan teachers calls it... what does he call it? Spiritual materialism. So just because you talk the big game doesn't mean you're any more enlightened than the next person. And what happens with the shape arts is that you can easily talk shapes, and I look like I've transcended and I'm an artist, but there's nothing tested. Certainly in grappling, and I'm not just BJJ, anywhere where you're testing your stuff, right?
Right.
You get a chance to prove or disprove that. And through that fire, if you dare to do it, is where the art is revealed, mainly because the bit that gets in the way is knocked or choked out of you. You're too busy trying to survive, right? And we've all felt that. But I think that can only come from pressure testing. And that's not pressure testing, in my view. That's not pressure testing to go, oh, I could use this on the streets. Who cares? I don't care. Right. It's pressure testing to go, oh, and that removes the brain, because you know when someone's sitting on your face trying to choke your head off, there's a point where your thinking stops, right?
Right. Either in a way that you're comfortable with or a way that you're not comfortable with. Either way.
Exactly.
I just had that conversation with a student of mine. We a couple of videos back, we did his Nikyu test in karate, and he was talking about the feeling that he had while he was sparring, where he's going, it's one thing to have my mind give out before my body does. But it's a different thing to have my body give out before my mind does.
And when they both go, you're finished.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he was, we were sparring and there was like this guttural yell he started doing and stuff. And I asked him about that. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I just needed my body to do something. It's like it just was giving up. And that it's a different space when you put yourself in a place where you are truly challenged and you're trying to figure out how to just make it to the other side.
And in that space is where I believe, was where transcendence lies. Because it's such a pure space. And you often don't feel it there in that space. You're just like, oh, it's another guy killing me or another girl killing me, right? It doesn't just pick your poison. But you start to, it's later when you drive home and you go, oh, that car in front of me is a bit brighter. Or that view, I'd never noticed that. Did you know it's those things after? And we know scientifically it's the rush, it's the endorphins, blah, blah, blah. But it's still a transcendent state that comes from pushing until you get out of your way. I think that's why so many people, when I was in Okinawa, I was expecting to meet Mr. Miyagi, right? And, this great grand type thing. And of course, it doesn't happen like that. People show up after work and train, and you realize, yeah, that's it, right? You just show up because you've had a really bad day at the office. You do an hour and a half training and you feel better before you go home. Bang. Isn't that transcendent enough?
Hearing you put it that way kind of helps put it and kind of speak it into fruition a little bit, that we have that thing that if you're on the mat, if you train, then you do it and you experience it, but you might not be aware of it. You might not be thinking about it. You might not even, it might just happen. You love that it happens, but you've never even put any thought to it.
Yeah.
But when you talk about it like that, I can think of exact moments that driving home is a great example because that's the last thing I do every day, and so that drive home is, I know that I had a really good training session if I get in the car and I don't turn on the radio, I don't turn on a podcast, I don't turn on anything.
That's what I'm like. You're right. Yes.
Yeah.
Ken, that's exactly what I do. There is the time you reach the radio and go, actually, do you know what? I'm just happy doing this. Just this is, yeah, that's right. That's true. When you don't, I love that line. When you don't turn anything else on to keep you entertained, you just sit in that beautiful, I'm going to say, I know this is a bit cheesy, but I'm going to say the word bliss. Some of those finishing training sessions are blissful. You just sit in that bliss, drive home, sleep like a baby.
Mm-hmm.